Welcome to the Startup to Exit podcast, where we will bring you world-class entrepreneurs and VCs to share their hard-earned success stories and secrets. This podcast has been brought to you by TIE Seattle. TIE is a global nonprofit that focuses on fostering entrepreneurship. TIE Seattle offers a range of programs, including the Go Vertical Startup Creation Weekend, TIE Entrepreneur Institute, and the TIE Seattle Angel Network. We encourage you to become a TIE member so you can gain access to these great programs. To become a member, please visit www.seattle.tie.org.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another great edition of our podcast from Startup to Exit. Along with my co-host, Shirish Natkarni, we are happy to bring a great episode with another great guest. And I'm sure that all of you will enjoy hearing from him. From Startup to Exit is produced by TIE Seattle. TIE is a not-for-profit organization. And my co-host Shirish and I serve on the board of TIE Seattle. And Shirish is also a serial author, along with being a serial entrepreneur. So we borrowed the name of the podcast from his first book, From Startup to Exit. His books are available where books are sold. Our podcast is available wherever you hear your podcast. Once again, thank you for all your support for the last year, and I hope you continue to enjoy our content. Please spread the word and come back and listen every time we put out a new episode. With that, I'll hand it over to Shirish to introduce our guest. Shirish?
Thank you, Gauri. So today I'm very pleased to welcome Praerit Garg, also known as PG. He's the president of product and innovation at Smartsheet. Smartsheet, as you may know, is one of the success stories out of Seattle. PG has more than 25 years of experience building large-scale distributed systems and internet services. Before Smartsheet, PG was a general manager at AWS for identity, access, and directory services. He's also a startup founder, co-founder of a company called Simform. And then before that, he was at Microsoft. We overlapped for some number of years. He was at Microsoft for 12 years, where he was responsible for user identity, access, and encryption features in Windows. So welcome, Praerit.
Thank you, Shirish and Gauri. Glad to be with you guys.
Excellent.
Great. So let's start with a little bit of your background. So can you tell us a little bit of your arc of your journey from Microsoft to founding two different startups and then finally joining Smartsheet? Tell us a little bit more about that journey.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, right out of my, I was in the PhD program at Purdue, but and I was able to convince my advisor that it's better to actually go in the industry and get a real job back in 1995. My advisor was not exactly happy about it because he had some funding that was tied to the research work I was doing. Regardless, I was able to get a graduate with a master's and join Microsoft in 1995. I ended up joining the Windows NT team at that time and part of the distributed systems sort of division within the Windows NT program. And that was focused on the directory services, which sort of led to the creation of Active Directory. So that's sort of where my career started. I was responsible for a lot of the security capabilities that we delivered in Windows at that time. And then from there, I went into doing systems management work at Microsoft, sort of part of this System Center suite of products. And eventually, in 2007, I felt like I had to leave the mothership because if I had to keep having new experiences and continue to grow, I had, in Microsoft terms, I had become a partner. And, that's like becoming a professor and you're just like, you need to leave. Otherwise, you're will be stuck in the machine. And so I ended up sort of going and doing a startup. That was, I often say, it was a fairly humbling experience, right? Like, when you grow in a large organization like Microsoft that is super successful, it's like a bubble, and you learn how to succeed in that bubble. And so leaving Microsoft is like you have to unlearn all the things you had learned about the bubble, and you have to relearn a whole new set of skills. And you may think that you know how to go find customers or talk to customers. It's totally different when you actually do your own startup, right? Like one of my jokes is like, when you have a Microsoft business card and you gave somebody your business card, people call you back. When you're a startup and you give your business card, nobody calls you back. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, right? Mm-hmm. So you have those experiences, super important experiences. I think they set, so we raised $20 million over 2 rounds of capital for that company, eventually sold that company to Quantum. And then I ended up joining AWS because of James Hamilton. I don't know if any of you know James, but James and I knew each other when I was still a grad student. And so he ended up in Microsoft, and then he convinced me that I should join AWS. And I'm like, why would I join another big company? I'm a startup guy now. And he convinced me that AWS was set up like a bunch of startups inside, and which actually turned out to be true. I ended up running many of the identity services there, got a ton of great experience. But 4 years later, I decided that it was time for me to move on, and I thought I was done with technology. I thought I was going to essentially maybe go teach or something. That's when I met Mark Mader because of a colleague of mine, and the rest is history. Mark convinced me, and I ended up joining Smartsheet. So I've been here about 5.5 years now. First running just the engineering team, and then picking up product and running product and engineering, and then last year many other functions like business intelligence, corporate development, and partnerships, pricing and packaging, and many of the marketing functions like digital marketing functions. So yeah, it's been a great journey, right? Which continues to be true.
That's great. So what was the inspiration behind joining Smartsheet? They were still a young company at that time. Was it to be back in the startup world again, or were you attracted to their vision, or what was it that, besides of course that personal connection with the CEO?
I think I'd sort of say 2 or 3 different things. One was I had done a startup thing, I had done the large company thing, right? Smartsheet was at a very interesting point in its journey, right? The company had just gone public, so it was a few hundred employees, right? A little over 100 million in revenue, so a very different size of company. So that was one dimension to it. I think I'm at a point in my career where people matter a lot, so my connection with Mark was a huge part of the motivation, but also the mission of the company. And so I had read this book. I don't know if you read it. It's called *Sapiens* by Yuval Harari. And and the story behind *Sapiens*, right? One of the key aha moments in *Sapiens* for me was where he talks about how humans are the only species on the planet which on its own volition bands together to go pursue missions, right? Like we're the only species on the planet. Like some species are biologically wired to band together, right, for search of food, but humans are the only species. That's how we have solved, food at scale problem. How we have landed a rover on Mars or solved, diseases. It's human collaboration that brings people together to go pursue missions. And the interesting thing about Smartsheet was that Smartsheet's mission was to help all other missions, right? Because we are a work management platform, and our mission is to help all these teams and organizations on whatever project or program or mission they are pursuing, and be that tool that sort of helps them go pursue their mission and drive that collaboration across these band of human beings that are pursuing that. So that was super intriguing for me. Like as a software guy, right? to be on a mission that helps all other missions. Right? It's like that's a great thing to sort of be looking forward to getting up every day.
That's great. That's great. Now, I wanted to explore a little bit further back in the history about being a startup founder. You said it was a humbling experience. What are some of the key lessons that you learned that you can share with our audience?
I think, I think depending on where you are in your life experiences, I'm sure different people will have their own sets of experiences. Like I told you, like one of my big experiences, like I was in my mid-30s. I had a 12-year career, successful career at Microsoft. Unlearning a bunch of things that made you successful was actually kind of a big part of my learning. Just right, you basically are back to ground zero, and you have to essentially now go find your customers, right? Like, how do you go find your customers when you work in a large organization where they already have essentially a flywheel turning and customers come to you? So that's not a simple thing to do. And for a technologist whose natural thing is to go build technology and right, you figure out, okay, how do I go find the right set of customers, talk to them, and then hear what their real pains are. What are they really willing to even pay for, right? What are they going to open their wallet for and actually pay for? And all those are kind of, sort of real learnings going through that. I remember, I'll give you a specific example. We started the company in 2007, right? Economy crashed in 2008. A lot of people would remember, right? And so, and suddenly it becomes very real, right? It's like, oh, your own, you think you're going to sort of figure it out, right? Suddenly your own portfolio shrinks. Like, now we need to make this real. Otherwise you have to go back to some corporate jobs. And I remember one evening staying up pretty late into the night. I went to the Microsoft website. So the technology we were developing was around cloud storage, and it was sort of a backup solution. So I literally got on the Microsoft website and started looking up at the small business value-added resellers, the VARs. And Microsoft had a special website where you can go search for VARs in your area. And I did a search for, in a 25-mile radius, how many small business VARs are there. And I remember building a spreadsheet with their names and phone numbers, right? And next morning, I started cold calling them, right? It's like, hey, here's a backup solution, cloud backup solution we have, and would you be interested in sort of backing up your customers, your small business customers, and so so you use your Microsoft credibility, but you also sort of connect the dot for them, and I was like, my view was like, if I got 5 or 6 people to sign up, we'll be off to running something. We could actually get a beta out there. And I remember I talked to like 17 odd small business reps. All 17 of them signed up. And I was like, oh, we have.
That's amazing.
Right? Like, but I literally drove in my car these are all people, belts and suspenders. They are going and serving their customers. So they're not always available. So I drove around to meet them in their offices and show them the solution and got them signed up. So you learn those things, right? Like doing startup. It's like, find your customers, make it super real. And even in down economy, once you had real customers using your stuff, right? If people are then willing to invest in it, right? Like, so certainly even in down economy, at that time, Mark Ishida sort of said, "Oh, I'll invest in your startup," and that sort of got the flywheel going, right? But that's not the end of the story, right? You also learn about the team, right? Like building the right team, and it's not easy to attract great talent when you're a tiny little startup with full of risks, right? And so, how do you find your first set of team members, and how do you focus on building the right, solving just the right amount of technology problems, right? All of those are hard lessons you go through and learn.
Right. Yeah. No, that's a great story. Now, coming back to Smartsheet, what does your role as head of product and innovation entail?
Yeah, so I would sort of say if you sort of separate out the various G&A functions, right, like legal and finance and all that stuff, basically we are organized around our go-to-market functions, like the field team. So Max runs our field team, so all of our sales and even the marketing functions like events and field marketing, we align them with Max and his team. And pretty much all product-related functions, whether it's engineering, product management, product marketing, the website, all the product-aligned functions are within my remit, right? So that's kind of the role broadly. It's like anything that aligns with the product and our priorities in innovating for our customers from a product standpoint aligns with.
Okay, great. So now wanted to explore the little bit of history of Smartsheet. I know you joined them, later in its life cycle, but I'm sure you're familiar with its journey. What was the original vision for Smartsheet? Was it simply Excel in the cloud? And how did that, if that was the case, how did that evolve into collaborative workplace management, which is how you position yourself today? Can you talk a little bit about that history and journey in terms of finding ultimately that product market fit?
Yeah. Remember, the company is called Smartsheet. So it wasn't just sort of, right? I often joke about this, and I'm going to say this here, which is, I think we need to run an ad campaign which says, not a spreadsheet. Smartsheet is not a spreadsheet, right? It's a work management platform, right? It's a enterprise grade, now heavily AI driven work management platform. And work management is, managing projects and programs and processes that are running in organization. So let me tell you the genesis of this. The founders actually observed this. They were serial entrepreneurs, Brent Fry and a couple of the co-founders. They had done a couple of companies. And one of the things they found was that any project or initiative that was getting driven in the organization, people will immediately pull out a spreadsheet like Excel, right, and start tracking all that work in a spreadsheet. And spreadsheets are not really designed for managing work. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And but that was the go-to tool, right? And people weren't actually using real project management tools. And so they studied that problem, and then some interesting things came out of that, their realization. One of the realizations is project management tools actually fail the need for work management, because project management tools are designed for project managers, right? But the work is not done by project managers. The work is actually done by the team in the organization, right? And these project management tools are so sort of specialized for project managers. The team that actually is doing the work can't really even participate. And spreadsheets just was one of the things people gravitated to, is because you can actually share it, and people can go in, and it's simple enough to use, and people can go and put their own updates into it. And so they saw that behavior that was actually happening in organizations. They also saw that project managers would basically track work by chasing people. Right? It's like they're setting up meetings to get updates, and then they are updating that information rather than people updating that information. There was very little automation built around any of that stuff, right? So like notifications and getting people to actually update. That's what led to creation of this idea of a Smartsheet, which was designed for managing work, right? And managing work in an organization where work is actually getting done by people in the organization, and they can participate. It has automations built in. It has a form-based input mechanism. It has reporting and dashboarding. And so, managing work involves a bunch of things, and you want to be able to track and report on that. And so that sort of led to creation of Smartsheet and all.
So the vision was not Excel in the cloud. It was more of it uses the spreadsheet format as the underlying architecture, but it was really designed for workplace management from the get-go.
Yeah, we have a grid-like view, right? Like we have a grid view. That's one of the views. You can actually have a Gantt view. You can have a Kanban like card or board view. So grid-like view is one of the views because it's a very familiar presentation format, and people can get into it. But
Right.
even when you actually look into the table view, right? Like it's actually significantly more evolved than a spreadsheet, which is a very simple sort of grid. Like the columns are actually typed columns, right? So you can have a date column, you can have a contact column, right? Like so that you can assign work to people and then you can notify them. There are automations built around that. So it has a tabular view. Like a typical spreadsheet just has like the columns are named as A, B, C, D. Right? That's not what a Smartsheet. You actually name the columns with real, like, oh, this is an assigned to column. This is a date column, start date, end date column. So yes, it has a tabular view. One of the views is a tabular view, but and yes, there was a little bit of this inspiration that these spreadsheets are easy to use and get started. And so tabular view is a very easy view. Most people understand tables and filling information in tables. So there's some of the genesis from there, but it was very much about managing work, right?
I see.
Work and reporting work.
And that's where they found the product market fit eventually.
Yeah. I mean, the company took Smartsheet is like a pioneer in this notion of work management, right? Collaborative work management product, right? Because the traditional project management tools just fail at that idea that work is collaborative in fundamentally, and so yes, it actually took several years to sort of realize the journey and establish and create like that flywheel. So much so that today, if you ask Mark, he will say like there is the real realization on this, which is now Gartner has a magic quadrant called collaborative work management.
Right. That's so, great.
Like, it's a real creation of an industry,
which is very hard. I mean, if there's an existing market, you can go after that. But if there's a new industry, you have to go convince the Gartners of the world to write about it.
Right.
Got it. Okay. So what are some of the, there are all kinds of workflows and, there's marketing, there's sales and, different, if you look at it functionally or even across the different functions. So do you have templates for different types of workflows?
Yes, hundreds of templates that exist for different kinds of workloads. And that's one of the challenges around when you are a work management platform that, and like you said, right, it's a super flexible data model, which is I can lay out the information I want to track for, right? If it's clinical trials, I can lay out the information I want to track for clinical trials. If it's marketing campaigns, I can lay out information I want to track for marketing campaigns. So it gives you that flexibility, that ability to adapt to whatever work you are trying to manage and track or program you're trying to drive. And so you can set it up and you can run. So like hundreds of templates. What we see is some of the most popular use cases, right, where you would call them flagship ones, right? Marketing use cases are very like our marketing management and creative management use cases are the IT portfolio management or enterprise project management, right? Those kinds of use cases. Service delivery is a very popular use case where service organizations use Smartsheet for sort of driving, like Convergent is an example of that. Like Uber uses it for their performance marketing program, right, where they track all of their campaigns and report on the performance of their campaigns. So all of that is done through Smartsheet.
Right. Now, some of your competitors, I saw in the Magic Quadrant, are companies like Asana and Airtable and so forth. Do they have a similar architecture, or like Asana, is that more of a project management tool from the get-go and it's not customizable for other scenarios?
That's exactly right. And that is one of the things that differentiates Smartsheet and has actually made it successful in large scale enterprise organizations is that ability to adapt to whatever. Like, I think the simplest way I try to describe that is, if I have to translate all the work I'm doing into projects and tasks, right? So I'm always translating my work into projects and tasks versus if I'm thinking of marketing campaigns and I can describe them as marketing campaigns and I can track them as marketing campaigns, it's just cognitively so much easier for my team to participate and provide that information. And then, right? And that's actually one of the differentiating things about Smartsheet, right? Is you can express your work as you see it. Like if it's clinical trials, it's clinical trials, not clinical trials transformed into projects and driven as projects. Right?
I see. Got it. Excellent. Let me turn it back to Gauri, and I'm sure I'd love to explore some of the new innovations that you have introduced recently.
Thanks, Shirish. So let me double click on this unlearning comment you made, right? So you're now running everything but the G&A functions within Smartsheet. So that means you're attracting talent. The reason the talent comes to you is they have experience, you're a great place to work. But comes with this the baggage of their previous experiences. How are you able to use your unlearning that you went through in your own startup to build a culture that is Smartsheet unique, that they are Smartsheeters, if that's even a word, rather than I was at X, Y, and Z, etc. And I'm sure they're technically or even functionally excellent at their work, but that's not what makes a great company, right? It's a collaboration of everybody. So you have a unique situation where you are bringing in people who have to believe in you, the company, and this, but they also have to unlearn everything else they've done because that's not the way you do it. How are you inculcating that into your company?
That's a great question. So first, in addition to G&A, I don't. Max runs our go-to-market function, so I'm responsible for all the product side function. But you ask a wonderful question about as human beings, right? Like we are all sort of slaves to our experiences. I like to say, right? So we bring all of our baggage wherever we go, right? And so how do you inculcate the Smartsheet way of doing things, right? And even me coming into Smartsheet, right? Like how do I adapt myself to how Smartsheet was doing it, and then help Smartsheet adapt to how we want to do it. I think there are a few things I'll say. This is another example of where I learned something from Noah Harari's book, and Sapiens. Human beings are incredible, and there are lots of books over the years I've learned, sort of read, and then many cultures I've lived in, right? I lived the Microsoft culture, I lived the Amazon, AWS culture, and every culture taught me things, right? Taught me things like organizations are constantly evolving, right? People leave, new people come in, they all bring their own biases, their own experiences. So how do you create an organization in this very fluid, right, the Brownian motion kind of thing, where all these people with their own brains, how do you keep them focused on whatever this organization's mission is, whatever we are doing, right? So one of the things I learned from both at AWS and also in Noah's book was this idea of how do you take a large number of human beings and get them aligned to whatever the mission is, right? Like at Amazon, there are a couple of meetings that are done at very large scale meetings, right? So there is a weekly ops review, and there is also a weekly business review, right? There are two meetings, and both of those meetings are hundreds of people. Just like so if you join those meetings the first time, you would sort of look at like, oh my God, very expensive meeting. Many VPs, directors, right? Even engineers, like in the operations meeting. And so my analogy is like, it's like going to church, right? Why do religions scale, right? And scale globally, right? They don't all sort of live in one office, right? Or one building. This idea of every week you go to church and you're reminded of what being a good human being is, right? Whatever the mission of that religion is. You see that in organizations as well, right? So that's one example of learning you bring in. So we run a weekly operations review and a weekly business review in the product and innovation org. And we're a SaaS business, and two things matter, right, from a product and innovation side. Now, one, because we're a SaaS business, we are earning our customers' business every day, every hour. We can't afford the service to be down, right? It impacts thousands and thousands of our customers and millions of users who are using it. So weekly operations review is all about creating a learning culture that we are a SaaS business. We got to keep our service up. So if you have incidents, we do the 5 reviews of those. And it's like those meetings are several hundred people with engineers joining in. And we do the 5 the team that actually had the incident did the analysis, they walked through it. So you drive this constant reminder that service uptime and availability and performance and scale are pretty fundamental. And you do that every week because new people are constantly joining the organization. So you got to keep that thing going on. The weekly business review is the same kind of thing. The other thing you have to do is you have to constantly innovate. You have to constantly solve customer problems. You have to stay close to what support issues are coming through, what escalations are coming in, what product capabilities customers need to solve their, right? So that's the other meeting where our support team comes in and presents escalation data, support data. We look at the product roadmap that we have committed to actually deliver on to go solve customer problems, and how are we doing against that. And so again, it's like two meetings that are like going to church, reminding the two fundamental things, like how are we innovating for our customers, how are we keeping our service available, and serving them every single day, every single hour. So those are examples of things we do to kind of align the organization and sort of create this constant reminder of why we are here, why we do what we do, right? Hope that's an example of
that was very well put, right? That is, it looks like you reinforce purpose every week and leverage the experiences everybody has to make a better service, better product, better experience for your customers. Seems like you're bringing it together. The vehicle of meeting is one of them, but since they meet and agree on the purpose, they can build on it in their own little teams or their own little workforce, right? So,
right, and these are working meetings, right?
Yeah.
These are learning meetings. These are working meetings, and so they're not for project tracking, but as much as having the conversation, what the issues are, what's going on, like, and that's what it's about, right? And the same thing, we are now post-COVID. We've sort of seen this, like remote has become the norm, if you will, right? Most people are remote now, and so another thing we've sort of seen very heavily used in the organization to drive alignment is creating these. If we do these things called concept reviews and UX reviews, and even write the customer problem definition documents, right? So because it's all about aligning the organization or what problems that need to be solved, and right. And so a lot of is done is completely asynchronously, right? So the team that does our UX design creates a UX review, which is literally a video that walks through the new experience, shares that video through Smartsheet. So we have a capability called File Library. They literally upload that video in File Library, share it out, and then all of us are at our own time, right? Like I literally watch those videos at 1.5x speed, right? And I watch them and I can stop at any point and I can put my comments and give my feedback back to the team, all collected asynchronously. And the designer who's actually driving that thing gets the feedback and can sort of move forward, right? She doesn't need to organize some big meeting, an hour, walk through that experience, completely collected asynchronously, right? And that frees up so much of calendar time. Like I would say, like probably hundreds and hundreds of meetings are not happening in the company right now because we drive so much of alignment and work asynchronously through Smartsheet.
So that's interesting, right? So in your tenure at Smartsheet, the 5.5 years, two unique world events have happened, affected humanity. COVID, we all agree it have affected humanity in its entirety, and the birth of AI. It's affecting humanity. And uniquely, your company and the product are in the core of both of these events. Like, if you want to collaborate on work in a COVID environment, you were there. And in AI, the promise is that there'll be productivity increase, decrease, enhancement that can all be collaborated on a tool or a tool like yours. So,
Yeah,
and uniquely, you were there in this company both times.
like the crisis,
Yeah.
right, and the gift,
Yeah.
right? Right? Like one
So,
is
did you? So now, if you could talk a little bit about how you guys are implementing AI, but what learnings you got from COVID, which was the ultimate collaboration, global collaboration experiment the world went through for a couple of years, right? Didn't matter who you are, you had to collaborate in some fashion. What learnings you got, and how are you taking that learnings and implementing in AI? Maybe start with AI and then go back to COVID. What is it that you guys are doing in the AI realm?
yeah. So I often like to say that generative AI is like the gift that there's probably no better gift for a product and mission like Smartsheet's mission, right? Like we are focused on helping business users manage work, right, in a collaborative way. And business users are not sort of technologists, right? They if you if you're sort of managing clinical trials, you focus on your clinical trials. You're not building software, right? Same thing. So, while Smartsheet is fairly easy to get started with and use, but there are elements of capabilities which are what I call high cognitive load, right? Like we have capability where you can use formulas in your sheet to compute certain values. Like for example, if you're calculating risk or you're calculating budget for the work that's happening, right? And so those you need to write formulas to be able to calculate for your environment. Like average business user doesn't wake up in the morning thinking about I'm writing formulas, right? And so one of the things we've done in with generative AI is we added the generate formula capability where you can in natural language sort of say, okay, what are you trying to calculate? And it generates that Smartsheet formula and populates that for you, right?
Wow.
And and another example, like average business users are not data scientists, right? They're not data
Right.
scientists. So you have all this data about potentially thousands of projects that are happening in your organization in a program, and you have all this information now. How do you analyze that? You're not a Tableau expert. You're not a data scientist. So we added this analyze data capability where you can ask your question like, which projects are you at risk, or which projects are over budget, and literally we would generate the chart for you. Will identify that the list project using the generative AI capability we've added. So pretty high cognitive load problems, right? You can go solve like things we are right now working on. We have a very powerful capability in the product is around automations, right? So you can configure automations, and like we're adding a capability where you can just say what you want to automate and we'll generate that automation for you, and then you can tweak it and modify it, but you don't have to build the automation from scratch, right? Because average business users aren't thinking in terms of some logic steps and if then else clauses, right? And so those are examples of things that now we can do because we have this technology that unlocks humans being able to talk in a natural language, and then we able to actually translate that into a SQL query to be able to analyze and build a chart or generate a formula for them, or generate an automation for them. So those are like examples of capabilities.
Awesome. So, if I were to think of you guys as say OS for work, right? You work where a machine and you are the OS in it, right? But the fact is that because of even with your inspiration, how people are using say spreadsheets for managing projects, to where you are now using Gen AI to solve or give the user a lift in their productivity.
Right.
In that journey, the users, the enterprises, your customers all have these vertical applications, intelligent in some cases, that are unique to their particular journey. Let's say for construction, I may have a construction project management software, even though you may have a construction workflow associated with it. As a product leader, how do you view competition? It's almost like you have to look at it vertical by vertical because you're horizontal, right?
Mhm.
Or at least I see it as I can be in clinical trial, construction, and or banking,
Marketing.
and I can use it all. And you'll have a customer in each of those categories. How, as a product leader, you're taking such a large vertical where you are the glue, but also at times you get clear competition from applications built for that vertical, and they're very good at that, but no more than that. How are you thinking about it?
Uh, when you ask that question, you think from a leveraging generative AI.
Leveraging generative AI and also your experiences of how your customer, because I can have a project management for construction, but I can also have a Smartsheet. Both can be coexistent. But as a product leader, you use Gen AI to kind of take market share. Really, you are struggling for mind share of employees, right? I want to be in Smartsheet most of the time, not in other places.
Yeah, so that's actually one of the powers of Smartsheet, is that because it is so simple to use, right? Yeah, like just like you guys said, it's like, how is it different from spreadsheet?
Yeah.
Right? Like the approachability of the product makes it easy where people actually fall in love with it and want to
Mhm.
use it because
Mhm.
it feels simple, right?
Mhm.
And our objective with generative AI is largely how do we, because we have lots of powerful capabilities in the product, right?
Mhm.
We have automations, we have building dashboards where you can put widgets on the dashboard with charts and graphs of, right, how work's happening. You can
Mhm.
manage thousands of projects at scale.
Mhm.
And so we've been very focused on how do we take the powerful capabilities that we have in the product,
Mhm.
make it much more easy
Mhm.
for business users to actually discover those capabilities and start using those capabilities. Because the more deeply they use the product, right, the more their work is now in Smartsheet, and it becomes that much more sticky.
Mhm.
It sort of, and that much more value creation happens for that organization using Smartsheet, right?
Mhm.
And so that's why. So we don't think of sort of verticals softwares as necessarily competition.
Mhm.
We think of it as more complementary, right? So like we have, Smartsheet doesn't live in isolation in any organization, right?
Right.
They're using Microsoft tools, they're using, Salesforce, they're using other tools, and so we have a bunch of integrations with other products. We have, we have an integration with Salesforce, so customers can bring their, CRM data into Smartsheet for, like we have customer who, especially in service delivery, you see this often where sales team will close an opportunity, right? So we have a hospital equipment manufacturer that uses Smartsheet where sales will close their deal, and that opportunity, once closed one, actually shows up as a project in Smartsheet. A project gets spun up in Smartsheet now because they have to go drive a deployment of that customer.
Mhm.
In,
Mhm.
right? So, and all that is driven through Smartsheet. So a team gets assigned to it, and that diagnostic equipment gets for deploying that diagnostic equipment into the
Mhm.
hospital. So
Mhm.
there are lots of such integrations exist, right? Like in
Mhm.
construction, same thing. Customers can bring their construction software data into Smartsheet.
Mhm.
The place where we add value is that collaborative work and driving and tracking work, right?
Mhm.
Um, we often talk about managing work has having three dimensions, right? There's the work itself, right?
Mhm.
So like what are the tasks and what are the steps of the work that needs to get done? Who has to go do that work? There are people that have to be assigned work, and you have to manage. Sometimes people are assigned to multiple projects or programs, and they're doing that, right?
Mhm.
And then there is content. So usually there are, like in marketing, there are digital assets that are getting created or are assigned with the campaign that have to be tracked. There are videos and images. There might be SOWs, statement of work, that are so. Smartsheet brings all of that together. So we often talk about, so there's the work, there's the people that you have to manage in the context of the work, and there's the content that's associated with the work. And you can track all of that in the context of Smartsheet, right? And so, yeah, we don't worry about vertical as competition. We worry about as complementary.
Got it. So this opens up this other conversation around, you have a lot of enterprise data. I mean, the enterprise stores a ton of data in you, right? Then there's the LLMs, and we just recently spoke with Adam, a very famous IP attorney in town, about LLM and how they've been able to train their models, right? Now you guys can build enterprise models within your own product or within the enterprise. How, as a product leader, are you able to manage where, A, I'm assuming you're using LLMs, but if no, that's, you clarify. If yes, how are you leveraging that versus what the enterprise views as proprietary to them and their data, so that they get the generative AI experiences and advantages, but not, get their data to be available for consumption outside of their own?
Absolutely. It's a super important little detail, right? Like, how do we make sure customers' data remains that customer's data? We are a multi-tenant platform, and so very important to making sure customers' data is. So yes, we use LLMs, right? But we're very intentional about using LLMs where LLMs are not training on the prompt coming in, right? So LLMs are pre-trained with the data, and our most of our usage is, think, retrieval augmented or prompt engineering, those kinds of things, where we aren't training LLMs. We are essentially using the LLMs because LLMs are fairly well trained, and like you look at GPT 4.0, right? So we use that model, and we're looking at Cloud from Anthropic. So we're using models to do things like generate a formula for the customer or analyze their data, but we don't actually ship the customer's data for the analyze, right? So what you do is you have to be super smart about how you create the right prompt, right? And creating the prompt, like, through a prompt, what we generate is actually a SQL statement that we run against the customer's data in our environment. We don't actually ship customers' data, right? What the prompt is about, generating a SQL query that answers the question that the user is asking for in terms of analyzing it, right? So we're very, very careful about not training LLMs. There's a whole another discussion about should we give customers opportunity for creating a customer-specific LLM trained on their data, and we're exploring that as something that potentially in the future we talk about, sort of this knowledge graph based approach to answering questions, where all of the customers' projects and programs that are captured in Smartsheet for that tenant, we can essentially create a knowledge graph and be able to answer questions about all the work that's happening across the organization that they can use to answer questions, right? So early days in that part of the journey, but customer data isolation is critical, right? It's our commitment to our customers. Some of it is sort of just how LLMs work, where you don't have to actually ship customer data. You can design the prompts to get the answers you want.
So shifting gears a little bit, right? So your company is a success story in Seattle, where we all live. So it was a startup funded by great VCs like Madrona. You went public. Now you've announced an acquisition by private equity firms, right? So in this journey, you've gone from a really small solving a particular problem to now you're a platform that's solving worldwide. A lot of enterprises are using. But for you and the other leaders, has the shift in quote unquote cap table made any differences, or has it allowed you to do things one way or the other? Or is there you wake up and say, oh, we have a new cap table owner, or you guys just kind of go about it? Because each of them have their own specific push and pulls, right? When you're VC funded, market funded, PE funded, they all have push and pulls. And I'm sure that every leader has to, contend with the push and the pull, whatever that may be. How does that, for your journey, has been? How was that experience for you particularly?
So just to clarify, right? Like we've signed a definitive agreement with the consortium of Blackstone and Vista. The deal hasn't actually closed. So in that sense, I can't really say much yet about like I think we believe that it's going to be we're super excited about it. It's going to be a great thing for our customers.
Sure.
At this point in the journey where the company is and our ability to serve them, some of the things that you just made a point of, right? We are excited about like what that would translate at. But honestly, I can't really say much at this point in time until the deal closes and a bunch of those things start to become clear to us.
Totally appreciate that. I think I was more exploring, has the shift from being a privately held VC funded company to IPO, there was a shift in the way you operated as a company. And yes, you joined, but then you had to, there were quarterly earnings and those kinds of rhythms and cycles, right? So the company got into a cadence, right? Whether or not this happens, there's going to be some change of some kind. I'm more asking that question: how are you taking the external forces to keep that purpose of the church analogy used to keep them all grounded? Because as you said, we are humans, so humans start imagining things that hasn't yet happened. And you got to keep them together.
Absolutely. Yeah. So I think part of it is just being super transparent. Like we're in the process. We whatever information we have, we sharing with our employees, and as the process sort of completes, right, one way or the other, like then we'll know where to go from there. You're absolutely right about sort of the company going from being a startup, VC held startup, to going public, and there's some a maturation process that comes through, right? You have to report your earnings quarterly, how you manage your books, how you sort of do 10K filings. And as an officer of a public company, there are certain levels of responsibility and accountability to that. All of those things are very true, and we are hoping some of that stuff simplifies and allows us agility and right. So so I think just like the company went through one evolution, it's an opportunity to go through another evolution of it. And you're right that we have to keep the people focused on, right? Like important thing is Smartsheet continues to exist. The product continues to exist. Our customers need to still be, every single day, need to be taken care of, right? We need to continue to grow, right? The investors like Blackstone and Vista aren't putting $8.4 billion to want to do something like this. If they didn't think that we could actually create massive returns, right? So you have to. So company needs to continue to grow and deliver on its promise and on its mission. So that's where you have to keep reminding everybody back, right? And stay focused.
Yeah. Praerit, it's been a great pleasure. We could talk more and more because you have this whole sapient. I was visualizing ants working together. Just saying humans come together on a mission. Like these smart sheeters are all working on a mission. So thanks a lot for this wonderful time. Truly appreciate it. Shirish, if you could close us out, that'd be phenomenal.
Great. Thank you so much, PG. This is a great conversation. In fact, I'm excited about using Smartsheet at TIE Seattle because we manage many events. Hopefully, you have some special pricing for nonprofits.
This is awesome.
Yeah. It'll be fantastic to learn. I mean, you have really an innovative architecture for building different kinds of projects and so forth. So, wish you all the best with your journey and with your eventual acquisition by the PE firms. I'm sure it's going to be a much bigger company in the future. So, again, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. That was a lot of fun. Thank you both.
Thank you for listening to our podcast from Startup to Exit, brought to you by TIE Seattle. Assisting in production today are Isha Jain and Mini Verma. Please subscribe to our podcast and rate our podcast wherever you listen to them. Hope you enjoyed it.